Welcome to the Blitz. Free plays for week 3 of college football coming right up. If you're watching us live here on the WagerTalk YouTube channel, start firing off those questions right now. Any game you want to talk about, we will be happy to oblige. Of course, we're talking all the big games for sure. That means Georgia, Tennessee, Notre Dame, Texas A&M, USF, Miami, Florida, LSU, Arkansas, Ole Miss, and Vanderbilt, South Carolina. Here to help me break things down, Ralph Michaels and Ross Benjamin. And great news for all of you. The three of us have decided we like each other so much that we are now the permanent team here on the Blitz each and every week. So it's me, Ralph, and Ross every Thursday live here at 1 p.m. on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. Ross, I'm going to go to you first here for Georgia and Tennessee. This is a situation where we have seen significant line movement. We did see significant line movement early in the week. Number dropped from Georgia -6 down to Georgia -3.5. I will tell everyone, whether this is true or not remains to be seen. However, a little birdie has indicated to me that we are going to see some sharp money come in on Georgia in the next 24 hours or so. Ross, how are you looking at this all-important SEC matchup?
Well, I mean, look, whether the sharp money comes in on Georgia or not, the line moved from 6 to 3.5, right? And I would say that that's not public money. So might be split here, and the little birdie in the room that you heard from, I respect your opinion on that. But look, here's the thing. Tennessee's 24-1 in their last 25 in Knoxville. And that includes in 20 games against FBS opponents going 19-1, or 21 games against FBS opponents going 20-1 and 14-7 against the spread. Ironically enough, their only loss in that sequence came to Georgia. I just think this is a Tennessee team that's built to make a national title run this year. I mean, they can move the ball offensively. I like their transfer quarterback. Their defense, we know, is experienced and very good. Georgia, to me, I mean, especially last week, when I look at their game last week against Austin Peay, they win 28-6. I think they could be had, especially early in the season. So I'm going to have a small lean toward Tennessee here. Oh. And if Brian's right, maybe you're better off waiting near game time or over the next 24 hours, like he said, and you'll get a better number. But even at 3.5, I like Tennessee in the spot.
Okay. I was doing this, Ross, not because of anything to do with your breakdown. It was because Georgia, I think, could be accused the last 2 weeks of perhaps a little sleepwalking through their first two opponents. They knew they weren't going to be tested by Marshall and Austin Peay. But Tennessee, certainly, Ralph, a different story in a big, bad SEC opponent. Nobody is more keenly aware of the trends than you. Georgia, let's talk about the rivalry here. Ross mentioned a previous Georgia victory here in Knoxville. Well, last 8 meetings overall, Georgia 8-0 straight up. They've won those 8 games by an average of 25 points per game. Now, some of those were when the Tennessee program was down, but Georgia's covered the spread in 7 of those 8 wins as well. What do you think? Does that history play into your handicap here at all for Saturday?
Well, you know, Brian, let me go back to your little statement. Not only is Georgia 0-2, maybe sleepwalking this year, Georgia is 1-11 against the spread their last 12 games as a favorite, period. It doesn't matter who they play as a favorite. They're 1-11. You know what that is? That is 8%. Ooh. Now, this was an interesting trend, and I said, how much does this really apply? Because we're only 2 games into the new season. But I looked, and early in the season, this has been successful. Home dogs that have won at least 7 straight home games. Obviously, you can carry over a season. Are 66-41, 62% against the spread. And conference home dogs in that role are 64%. Georgia, by the way, as an away favorite, only 3-8 ATS, their last 11. When I looked at top 20 home dogs, they've gone 23-18, 56% against the spread. If they're in the first 2 months of the season, they've gone 60% against the spread. And if they're a conference home dog, they are 73% against the spread. So that is 2 top 20 teams, a conference home dog, 73% ATS. And if you are one that bets the money line and you like Tennessee, listen to the stat and think about it for a minute. Conference away dog, in those 22 games, the dog is 11-11 straight up with an average line of plus 5.8. So that means if you bet those 22 games, if you're plus 5.8, that translates to a minus 250 money line. 11 of those 22 teams have won outright. I lean Tennessee. I'm concerned Georgia's offense, even though they sleptwalked, you still should do better than averaging 5.1 yards per carry against Marshall and against Austin Peay. I'm going to side with Ross here and back the Volunteers as well.
Okay. I'm going to say,
Brian, I'm seeing a 4.5 at FanDuel as well. So it's 3.5 across the board and 4.5 at FanDuel. So
okay, if you like Tennessee, that's the place to go. FanDuel. I think the line is going to, like I said, if you like Georgia right now, I think that you should bet them now because I think it's going to go to 4.5 pretty much across the board soon. Something we need to point out: the starting quarterbacks for Tennessee are out of this game, so that's something to watch in the Georgia offense, which Ralph mentioned has struggled, has kind of whatever the first 2 weeks. Can they wake up and they take advantage of that? All right, next game on the list should be a good one. Saturday night, it is Texas A&M and Notre Dame. These opened the season against one another last year. I had the first half under in that game. That was a winner. I kind of like the over, though, this year. Ross, what do you think here? Before the season, I did a special edition of the Power 5. I gave out some win totals. I said bet A&M over 8.5 at plus 150. If they win Saturday night, I think I'm dancing in the streets with that win total. I think that's going to be looking pretty good. But here's the problem. They're 2-13 against the number under Elko, including 0-2 this season, and they're an underdog in South Bend.
Yeah, I mean, and you look at Texas A&M, they've had struggles on the road the last few seasons. Notre Dame coming off that heartbreaking loss against Miami of Florida. They did have a bye week last week. Texas A&M, although they're 2-0, they haven't wowed me when I watched them. They beat UTSA, and they also beat help me out, guys. The other
Utah
game,
State.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not like they won by 22 or 21 points in each game, but they didn't come close to covering, and the opposition moved the ball on them. And Notre Dame here, keep this in mind. Under Marcus Freeman, they're 5-0 straight up in ATS coming off a bye during regular season action. 6-0 straight up in ATS coming off a loss in their last 6 under Marcus Freeman. So remember, Marcus Freeman got off to a terrible start at Notre Dame, losing his first 2 games, and I think he's somewhere around 33-8 since then. And the Irish coming off a loss, playing in their home opener. And unlike Texas A&M, who could really, if they lose a game, they're still alive. You'd be hard-pressed to make a case for Notre Dame if they start out 0-2 here as having any kind of decent chance to make the college football playoffs. So I think the urgency lies with Notre Dame here, and I'm willing to lay to 6.5 at home against the Aggies.
Oh, all right. Ralph, I mentioned Elko's struggles at the old pay window. Marcus Freeman, Ross referenced it. He's been quite good. He's been quite profitable back, even though Notre Dame did drop that season opener as a road favorite down in Coral Gables. How are you looking at this game?
So has A&M been tested? Obviously not. They haven't played one of the worst schedules in the country, but it's been pretty bad. And I found this very interesting, guys. There's times that even when I run data that I'm completely shocked. I ran the query, guys, that says, what happens in game 3 if you were a home favorite of 21 points or more and you won each of those games by at least double digits, and now you're an away dog? It hasn't happened very much, but those away dogs since 2016 are actually 62% against the spread. So I was going to say this. I think A&M is an overrated 2-0 team based on who they played. Yes, they have a dynamic offense with a couple incredible wide receivers. Carver has been amazing. Concepcion has been great. It really allows Marcel Reed to stretch the field. I do like Notre Dame's defense, though. Yes, they allowed 324 yards, but remember, This was 324 yards to a Miami team that was one of the top offensive teams that had a quarterback that was a transfer from Georgia. They were on the road in that situation. So I don't think at the end of the year, I think that 324 yards that Notre Dame allowed is going to be an actual positive number versus right now into the break, it looks like a negative. I did look up two other things that I wanted to share with you. Teams off a ranked loss. So you were a ranked opponent and you lost. And now you have a bye and you are off a bye. Those teams are only 49% at home. So it doesn't, not a positive, not a negative, but I still want to share that data with you. So if you have those type of thoughts, you know what the results are. But when that team is off a ranked loss game and they had a bye, they are 70% to the under the last 36 games, 11 overs and 25 unders. And that's where I'm going to go here. Big game, national TV. I like these teams having to feel each other out. I'm going to go under first half in this, and it's actually one of my top 3 plays from the games we're going to talk about. Under first half, Notre Dame, Texas A&M.
Okay. There you go. Of course, guys, here each and every week in the Blitz, we've got you covered with the biggest games on Saturday State, but we also will leave no stone unturned. If you're watching live, you can ask us about any game you want to hear about, and many are doing that right now in the chat. I'm going to go to a question from Adam because he wants to know about Georgia Tech and Clemson. I'm going to this game right now, Ross, because the line movement, it's a very similar story to what we talked about earlier just a few moments ago in the Georgia-Tennessee game. The market decided this number was too high at the open, and money came in on the dog. We know Brent Key at Georgia Tech has been fantastic as an underdog. I believe they've covered 6 straight at home against ranked opponents. I'm going to look that up in a minute after you're done breaking this down. Maybe Ralph also has that one handy. But Georgia Tech's been very live in the home underdog role against top teams under Key. What do you think? Clemson's not looked good at all the first 2.
No, I mean,
talk to me.
Yeah, they had to come back from a 16-0 deficit against Troy last week to win 27-16. They did have a strong second half. Maybe they can carry that momentum over. But, I was high on Georgia Tech to start the season. Although they just went 7-6 a year ago, they were my pick to win the ACC at plus 700. And this certainly, if I'm thinking Georgia Tech's going to win the ACC, they're real live for me right here. And you're looking at a Georgia Tech team that, look, they didn't even play with Haynes King, their quarterback, who I think is the best quarterback in the ACC when healthy. And I know I'm going to get a lot of argument there. But having said that, he didn't even play last week, and they put up monster offensive numbers. They were very good in their season opening win against Colorado, 27-20. They were pretty much in control of that game from start to finish, although it was just a 7-point difference. And Haynes King, again, if he's healthy this week, I like Georgia Tech even more. If he's not, I still like Georgia Tech. I think Georgia Tech wins this game outright. Clemson, again, losing to LSU at home 17-10 and listless last week. And now they go on the road for the first time. This is a huge game for Georgia Tech, and I think they'll be prepared and ready to get the cover here at home.
Yeah, and Ross, something else that the folks need to remember in case they didn't watch that game or had forgotten about it, the Georgia Tech season opener against Colorado. Georgia Tech should have won that game by more because they turned the ball over on their first 3 possessions. If they don't to turn the ball over 3 times and still win, that says something. If you could, because usually if you turn the ball over 3 times, you're not winning a football game. Georgia Tech did against Coach Prime and Colorado there in the opener. Ralph, I do have the trends right now in front of me. Under Key, Georgia Tech, 9-5 ATS against ranked opponents. They are a perfect 6-for-6 as a conference dog of single digits. That's Miami last year. So, will Mr. Key and those trends continue here on Saturday? It's a noon kickoff against Clemson.
If Haynes King was 100% healthy and he practiced this entire week, I would have been on Georgia Tech. He's been limited in practice. They do expect him to play, but to me, I'm going to lay off this. I do probably have some fire starter in a Clemson national championship ticket that I bet. So yeah, no team has been. again, losing to LSU is not a bad loss, but again, just the vibes you get from this team after the Troy game. Troy may be better than we expect, and I like the way Troy's played, but when you rush for 3.9 yards against Troy at home, running the ball 31 times, only gaining 121 yards, that's a concern for me. Can the Georgia Tech defense stop them? Well, they held Colorado to 305, but we know Colorado has their struggles. And what do they say? If you have two quarterbacks playing, you don't have a legitimate starter. Well, how about if you have three? Colorado has their issues. The Gardner-Webb game, obviously, Ross had mentioned. To me, it's Georgia Tech and the under. Not going to make my card with not being 100% positive on King.
Okay. We've got a lot of questions coming in on this Arkansas Ole Miss game. That game was in our rundown anyway, so let's go to it here. I see the main man, Jay Buff. Thank you for the shout out on my hair. I appreciate that. I always try to look my best here on the
You sure it wasn't me he was talking about?
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize there. Okay. But all right. So Jay Buff, he really likes these are actually two games that are on our rundown, guys. So let's we can hit them both. Arkansas, Ole Miss, Vandy, South Carolina, a couple games in the SEC. Yes, that SEC slate getting underway. LSU, Florida, too, by the way. We'll be talking about that game. If you have a question, hit us up. But Ross, let's go to Vandy, South Carolina. I know you had a lot to say about this game elsewhere here this week on the WagerTalk YouTube channel.
Yeah, I mean, this game looks like a trap to me. You're looking at a number 11 ranked team in South Carolina. And they're just, a 3.5 point home favorite here, or 4.5, whatever they are, against an unranked Vanderbilt team who only got one vote in the AP poll this week. And that I got to scratch my head because right now, to me, when I look at these two teams and I looked at film on both of them, Vandy, to me, is the better team. I mean, South Carolina, 2-0, deceiving. Why do I say that? They won 38-10 last week, Ralph, over South Carolina State. But guess what? They scored 3 touchdowns by way of a punt return, a block punt, and a fumble return. They only compiled 253 yards of total offense against an FCS opponent. And their week before, they won against Virginia Tech 24-11. We now know that Virginia Tech is not a very good team. And they benefited from a punt return touchdown in that game as well, and still did very little offensively. I mean, they had all this hype with Sellers at quarterback, and they haven't shown me squat offensively in the first 2 games. You look at Vanderbilt, won last week, 44-20. They had a huge total yards advantage of 490 to 248 against Virginia Tech. A common opponent, same play team that South Carolina faced on a neutral field. Vanderbilt went to Virginia Tech on the road, and that game wasn't even as close as the final score may indicate. That's how much Vanderbilt dominated that game. And look, here's the thing. They've lost 16 straight versus South Carolina over the last 16 meetings. You think that's not big-time revenge? Because this is, to me, a much improved program. I like Diego Pavia at quarterback. Is he an NFL-ready quarterback? Not even close. He may make it in the Canadian Football League, but he's not an NFL type of talent. However, he's a winner, okay? He's a winner. He knows how to get things done at the proper time. And college football away underdogs of 4.5 or less, like Vanderbilt, that are coming off an away underdog upset win in which they scored 41 points or more, and they're facing a team like South Carolina who's coming off a win, resulted in those away underdogs going 9-0 against the spread since 2003. Not only that, Ralph, those underdogs not only covered all 9, they won 8 of those 9 games straight up. Ooh. Give me the Vanderbilt Commodores, guys.
Oh, wow. Ross, he's got a lot to say. I agree with you, Ross. I don't know if Diego Pavia is a future Winnipeg Blue Bomber or not, but I will take it a step further, what you had to say about South Carolina. Right now, guys, there are 3 teams, the AP Top 25 poll. And I know there was a lot of controversy about that AP Top 25 poll during the week on social media. There are 3 teams that I think are wildly overrated. We can all write this down right now, and you can come back. If I'm wrong, you can make fun of me in the comments section. Or if I'm right, then you can all tell me how great I am. South Carolina, Iowa State, Illinois, all overrated, in my opinion. I don't think any of those three teams end up in the top 25 when the regular season is over. So I am with you, Ross. I think Vandy is live to go to Columbia here and pull the outright upset. Ralph, do we make it 3 for 3?
Beating Kansas State and beating Iowa is enough for me to get him in there. So
yes.
In that case, I totally agree with the other two. And, it's not just the AP that's a joke. And that's why you can never look at ranked teams early in the season, because all they're doing is basing on what happened last year. And if they win, they move up. If they lose, they move down. I remember when the UPI used to be big, that was the coaches poll. I remember listening to Urban Meyer talk all the time and said, I don't even fill out my ballot. I don't even see my ballot. I give it to an assistant. He fills it in. He sends it in for me. So do not put stock in those. They are a joke. There's no reason for me to say anything, guys. I agree with Vanderbilt, the way they've played. They should be there. I see South Carolina not being there. I think Vanderbilt is the play, but I do like this, especially in the SEC. We see a team like Vanderbilt who scored 45 against Charleston Southern and 42 against Vodtech. When you're scoring a lot of points against weak non-conference foes, and then you play your first conference opponent, your game plan changes a ton. And even with that, Vanderbilt ran the ball 68 times in 2 games, only passed the ball 48. They're going to run the ball. South Carolina is going to run the ball. They've ran for 73 times and only passed for 39 their first 2 games. I'm going to go first half under here again, guys. I know it sounds like a broken record, but agree with the Vanderbilt side. First half under as well.
Okay, there we go. Let's stick in the SEC because, guys, the questions are rolling in the chat. Jacob Hefner would like to know what's up with the line movement in Ole Miss, Arkansas. I was bummed to get the worst of the number laying it with Ole Miss. Ross, your thoughts on this one? My initial thought was maybe to look at an over. Arkansas, they put up some big numbers in the first 2 games. I believe they're top 5 in yards per play, points per game, yards per game. But look at who they played. It's not exactly a murderer's row of first 2 opponents. And then Ole Miss has a potential injury issue at quarterback. So interesting game here in the SEC. Another one.
Yeah, it's a game that I looked at up and down and couldn't come up with a decisive decision either way. As far as that move goes on the line move, I think that Ole Miss, and I'd be interested in hearing what you guys have to say. I think they're a tad bit overrated. I really do. They barely got by Kentucky last week on the road, and Kentucky's not a very good team. I know Kentucky beat them last year, but again, they struggled to win that game. And I just don't have a strong opinion here to offer the viewer in his question. Maybe Ralph or Brian does.
Ralph, line's down to 7. Commenter asked about the question there, or about asked about the line movement. Any angle for you here on this one? It is. I would concur that Ole Miss a little overrated. Lane Kiffin had to apologize to the bettors last week after the game when he gave up that late field goal not to cover the spread.
And again, they only rushed for 4.6 yards per carry. That's not a Lane Kiffin team. They usually press that pace early in the season and do that. I do want to comment, Brian. I didn't hear the name of the person who left the note, but my advice to you is this. If you like a game and the game has moved 2 or 3 points, just don't bet it. It's okay. The worst thing to say is, oh my God, I took the worst to this line. There's reasons you don't bet games, and that's one of them is because of a line move. So don't fall in the trap that you have to bet that game. If you got the worst of it, if it doesn't come back, let it go, and look how much you save at the end of the year. Write down every win, write down every loss, and remember, for every dollar you save, you're saving an extra 10% juice. I'm going to say that I actually think Arkansas's offense can move the ball here. I think they will be able to run against an Ole Miss defense. So again, no real lean on the game here. I like Arkansas team total. So if anything, it's a very light lean for me. But obviously, if I like the Arkansas team total, that means I think they're going to get 30 points. So that means they're likely going to cover this game. So by default, it puts me on the Arkansas lean side.
Ralph with some very sage advice there, guys, about when you miss the best of a number. Speaking of sage advice, the place to go, of course, is WagerTalk.com. And boy, do we have a special promotion for you this weekend. Our Weekend Warrior Pass. This is good for any of the three of us here. It's also good for any of your other favorite WagerTalk handicappers. This weekend, you can get every football play from your favorite handicapper for Saturday, Sunday, including any 5% releases for only $49. And as a bonus, we're going to include any football plays on Monday at no extra cost. So guys, I'm going to give you guys the opportunity right now to talk about what you maybe have already locked and loaded for the weekend. Ross, it's a great way to get involved this Weekend Warrior Pass. What are you doing this weekend, man?
Yeah, I mean, I got a 5% best bet on Saturday for $35, and another 3 college football winners on Saturday already posted. So if you take the price of those picks individually, you're talking about $110. That's not even including the NFL on Sunday and what I put out on one of the 2 or both Monday night games in the NFL. So, I mean, that savings is just terrific. And folks, let me remind you, the first 2 weeks of the college football season, week 1 and week 2, not counting week 0, I put out 2 5% best bets. Week 1, I had LSU plus 4.5. winning outright 17-10 at Clemson. And then last week, I had Oklahoma as a 5% best bet. Woo! They were a 5-point home favorite. They won by 11. My college football, by the way, folks, since 2023, number 1 in units earned since the start of the 2023 season. Last year in college football, number 1 in units earned, number 1 in win percentage. 4 huge college football plays up right now at wagertalk.com or at my personal link, wt.buzz/RB. So NFL will be up tomorrow, but certainly that $49, that's a steal, Brian.
It is. I will have a 5% play in the NFL on Sunday. I know we're, of course, talking college here in this hour. I'll talk more about what I've got going on my page, but I want my good friend Ralph Michaels to talk about what he's got going on this weekend. Before we get to more of your questions, I see the one about Troy and Memphis. That'll be up next.
Brian, I am with you with an NFL 5% play. It is a teaser. My college football and NFL plays rated 4% and 5% have gone 21 and 4, 84%. My NFL teasers rated 4% and higher, 7-0, and 14 and 1, 93%. Going back to November 2023, I had 5 NFL 5% last year. I went a perfect 5-0. Best of all, buy the Weekend Warrior right now, and you get all the plays already loaded for Saturday and Sunday immediately, so you could take advantage of the proper lines and grab them today.
All right, so there you go. Weekend Warrior Pass, guys. Any of your favorite handicapper, just $49 for the weekend. That is, as Ross mentioned earlier, a real value, a steal, dare I say. All right, let's talk about this game here. Adam wants to know about Memphis and Troy. You mentioned Clemson earlier. Clemson played Troy last week. Troy was beating Clemson 16-0, and Ross, they were probably feeling pretty good about themselves, weren't they, down in Troy? But they, of course, lost 27-16. So Adam's question is, do we like Memphis to dominate Troy after that emotional roller coaster last week, or is Troy just getting going?
You know, Troy might be just that good for a Sun Belt team. And Memphis was a favorite trendy pick, I should say, for a lot of people to come out of the group of 5, and they still may. But this looks like a tricky one to me, guys. You know, I think Troy, if you look at how they played defensively against Clemson last week, they just wore down because Clemson had more quality depth in that game. And I think a lot of people are jumping aboard the Troy bandwagon this week, and that line moved from 6 to 3.5. Again, that might be some sharp money because it came in early, or it might be an overreaction to what we saw in week 1. But this game is not going to get any of my money, Brian. And I'd like to give Adam a definitive answer, but I just think there's more value to be found on the college football board on Saturday.
Yeah, if you like Troy, unfortunately, you did miss the best of the number there. Memphis, Ralph, very interesting. The final score says they dominated their FCS opponent Chattanooga last week, 45-7. They did have a pick six, though, in that game. I always think that's important to note. Ross, earlier in talking about that South Carolina, the first week, talked about all their non-offensive scores. So what do we think? Is Troy for real, or is this a tough spot? You know, you're up on a team like Clemson, 16-0. You think it's going to be one of the big defining wins in program history, and then you get kind of boat raced in the second half. What do you have left emotionally in the tank? Because Memphis, as Ross mentioned, is one of the legit contenders to nab that G5 playoff spot.
Brian, you mentioned the pick six. More importantly, they went to Georgia State as that solid favorite. They only had a 401 to 389 yard edge. They were only a plus 12 yards overall. So, I mean, that's a very misleading final. They allowed 340 yards passing. Troy is a team that I really like this year. Why? Because we have second-year head coach Gerard Parker. Think about Troy last year. They started the season 1-8. What do? They beat Coastal Carolina. They go to Georgia Southern. They win. They lose at UL, not a bad loss. Then they beat Southern Miss. Now you have a team in their second year as a head coach. I think it's easy to rally in your second year a coach that won three of the last four games after starting 1-8, coming off and winning the opener and then playing that well against Clemson. To me, I am sold on Troy, at least for the next couple weeks. We'll see what happens.
All right, there you go. Memphis and Troy. Hopefully that helped you there a little bit. We're going to now go back to our rundown. We're going to leave the chat for a little bit. Keep those questions coming, guys. We are going to be hitting LSU in Florida. Very big weekend in the SEC. But what other games do you want to know about? There's just a random game you have a question about? You're watching us right now live. Drop that question in the chat. We will get to it. But I want to get to you talk about G5 contenders for that playoff spot, Ross. I think you have to be talking about the USF Bulls right now, who have beaten Boise State and they have beaten Florida. Now they face Miami of Florida. Needless to say, now, as impressive as the non-con has been here so far for the Bulls, to get that playoff spot, they need to win the American, and that's several months down the line. But I've got a question for you here. True or false? Does USF care more about winning this game or just keeping it close? Because here's the thing. If they can, in fact, win their conference down the line and they just simply keep this game close against Miami, then, yeah, it's going to be impossible to keep them out of the college football playoff come December. So I ask that to you because they're getting a big number here. And if they're down 20 late, I think they really care about punching it in a touchdown, and which would obviously get them under the number here, because I think they want the committee at the end of the season to look back and say, hey, USF only lost by such and such to Miami. Or am I crazy? Or am I overthinking things?
Yeah, no, you make good points. But I do think that a team that knocks off a nationally ranked team at the time, Boise State, and then another nationally ranked team at Florida, is not going to just hope they're keeping it close. They really, I truly believe they could win this game. And talk about a group of 5 contender right now to get to the playoffs. Whoever wins that American, to me, is going to be the group of 5 contender. I mean, that's a better conference than people realize right now. Navy's also pretty good, although they lack the overall depth and quality depth and defense as some of the top contenders in that conference do. But here's what scares me, Brian. Miami of Florida, they're not going to catch them by surprise, okay? They're not going to be – Miami of Florida is not going to take this game lightly. Miami of Florida is not going to waste a win over Notre Dame in their season opener. They're a very talented team. And it also strikes me that this game opened at 15.5 and very quickly, right after it opened, shot up to 17. Sharp money to me. If I'm not going to use this game. I do like the points you make, Brian, but I truly believe that South Florida wants to win this game and believes they could. Now, wanting to do so and doing it are two different things. I have a slight lean, Ralph, toward Miami here because of that early line move. It just, you would think that a double-digit underdog that just pulled off 2 upsets in a row against quality competition, and people would jump all over that. But that wasn't the case. And to me, that move is sharp money. That's not public money. So I think Miami, there's no way that Miami wants to contend for a national championship and lose to their little brother in South Florida. And that's basically how they look at things. So it's a tough call. But if you put the proverbial gun to my head, I would lay the points with Miami.
Okay. What do you say, Ralph? It's the 3rd straight week facing a ranked opponent for USF.
Well, Brian, I was on USF against Boise. We talked about Byron Brown, how good he was before he got injured, and he came back, and he looks to be the same player. But when you asked your question about do they want to keep it close, there's no other game on the board more than this one that sets it up for a backdoor cover. USF has South Carolina State at home on deck, followed by Charlotte at deck. Miami has Big Brother Florida at home, and then they go to Florida State, the other in-state rival. So you're talking about them. How many times do you play 4 in-state teams in a row? Bethune-Cookman, USF, Florida, and Florida State. So to me, the situation clearly screams USF with no one on deck. I could see Florida resting some starters before they host Florida next week if they're up by that aforementioned, you said, 3 or 4 touchdowns into the 4th quarter. I actually was close to using USF, but again, trends are either to help you make a bet or to keep you off a bet, and these trends are keeping me off USF. So guys, I'm going to put you on the spot real quick. I need a real quick answer from you. How many times since 2008, so we're talking, 16 years, has a college football team won back-to-back games as a dog? It sounds easy. The first 2 games of the season as a dog. I was shocked how low this number was.
Yeah, I would have thought that it would be not real low, but now that you mention that, Ralph, and I'd love to play poker with you because you just showed your hand, for crying out loud. I'll say
14 teams. 14 teams since 2008 have won back-to-back games as a dog. Next week, they've gone 6-7. But then I went and did this. How many teams were an away dog and one as a dog of 3 or more, and then one as a dog of 14 or more, like USF did? So back-to-back wins anytime in the season, not through the first weeks of the season. The next game, it's only happened 30 times since 2018. The next week, they are 9-21 against the spread. That is 30%. And if they're a double-digit dog, they are 2-14 against the spread. So some serious numbers for teams playing that 3rd straight underdog role. And while I like USF, and I would still give out USF as an opinion, this is a situation where those trends, to me, that make total sense, are keeping me off this game.
Okay, so there you go. Battle of Florida there, a little bit for both sides. And remember, Ross, I think we mentioned this, Ralph, too. The first time we talked about Miami, I believe, is when we were breaking down that Miami Notre Dame game. The 3 of us gets late, and the game is close. Mario Cristobal will often do the wrong thing. So we also have to acknowledge that, certainly. All right, guys, there's some weekday college football action, of course, this week. We've got a question from Colin Gregory on a little Friday Night Lights here. Coach Prime in Colorado. They're going, looks like they've made a quarterback decision there. They're going with the guy who was the original 3rd stringer against the Houston team that I bet over 6.5 wins to go before the start of the season. I thought this Houston team was going to be improved in a wide open Big 12. I expect Houston to win this game at home Friday night. Ross, am I crazy?
No, you're not crazy. And again, this is a tough call for me. I mean, this game opened with Houston -4, quickly moved to 6, and now there's been a lot of buyback, Brian. I mean, you're down to 4.5 pretty much across the board in this game. And yeah, I mean, I looked at this line and it jumped right out at me. And it also jumped right out at me was the early move, because initially my initial thought was Colorado might be a nice dog in this spot. But with the quarterback change, and it's not like Colorado has looked very impressive to start the season. This isn't the Colorado team from a season ago. They're talented, but not quite as talented as that team. And yeah, I would have a lean toward Houston in this spot, and agree with you, Brian.
Yeah, it's Ryan Staub getting the start for Colorado. We mentioned earlier when we were talking about the Colorado-Georgia Tech game that opened the season, Ross, Colorado could not beat Georgia Tech despite that lopsided turnover margin. That doesn't speak well to them. Now it's a different quarterback getting the start here. But Houston, Ralph, even last year when this team struggled, Houston has a very solid defense. And I like the coaching staff. I think this is a team on the ascent in the Big 12.
Have a second-year head coach in Willie Fritz, coming back, and we've seen the Houston improvement. And I'm a big fan of that. Second and third-year head coaches that continue to show the improvement with their squads. I'm going to make it simple. This Colorado team doesn't rely on the pass because they don't have a quarterback like Shedeur. But the last two road games, the first two road games of last year with Shedeur, at Nebraska, they threw for 40 times, ran 16. Against Colorado State, they threw the ball 49 times and ran 19. Now, when you look against Georgia Tech, they ran the ball more than they passed. So this is a Colorado team whose offense is going to be completely different this year, is not going to be as dynamic, is going to run fewer plays, is going to have a massive run-to-pass ratio, or at least a run-heavy pass ratio completely compared to last year. And I do like the Houston defense as well. Houston and the under for me.
Okay. So looking at the chat here, Lucky Larry asked about the Notre Dame Texas A&M game. Yes, we did talk about this one earlier, Larry. Maybe if we've got some time at the end, we'll come back to it. Some quick thoughts. Nice time for me to remind you guys. Click that subscribe button down below. That way you'll be instantly notified when the show goes live each and every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern. But if we do have some time, Larry, we can just kind of do a Cliff Notes version of our thoughts on Notre Dame and Texas A&M. But I want to get to another game here that Godfather J6 asked about. This is Bama and Wisconsin. Alabama, I'll tell you what, Ross. Luke Fickell, he needs to get in gear. Otherwise, he may be selling his home in Madison, because this Wisconsin offense looks absolutely atrocious. Now, Kalen DeBoer, everyone was ready to ride this guy out of town in Tuscaloosa, including that woman who, I don't know if you guys saw this clip on social media. She said if she won the Alabama State Lottery, the first thing she would do with her money was pay the buyout for Kalen DeBoer and run him out of town. I think that is an interesting use of winning the lottery. But I digress. Alabama killed L.A. Monroe last week. What do we think Alabama does here against Wisconsin? They killed them last year. I remember watching that game. Maybe, I don't know. We liked Alabama, Ross, at the start of the season. Then they go out and they lose to Florida State, who might actually be a very, very good team. So, kind of an interesting evaluation of the Crimson Tide right now, where they're at.
This guy's got to be related to me with a handle named Godfather. It's again, I thought that Alabama woman's going to take all the money if she won the lottery and hire Ralph Michaels as a head coach at Alabama. Because anyway, on a serious note, I think Wisconsin's a very deceiving 2-0. They don't have a lot coming back from a season ago. Luke Fickell, to me, has not been getting the job done at Wisconsin. It's tough to get the NIL money there. And I think Alabama, everybody threw them under the bus after that season opening loss to Florida State. But maybe Florida State is just that damn good, Ralph. My lean here is definitely the way to Crimson Tide. I think they covered the spread by the half and then win going away. I just don't think Wisconsin has that type of offense. They never had under Luke Fickell, where they're built to come from behind. So I think it could snowball out on them very easily if they fall behind quickly. And I think that's what will occur. And I like Alabama to win big here.
Yeah, the Wisconsin defense has done okay, Ralph. Obviously, they've played some weak teams. Miami of Ohio, by God, they're turn your eyes away when they're on offense, everybody. But the offense, again, for Wisconsin has not been up to snuff. And I concur with Ross, the boss there, that if Wisconsin falls behind, I don't know how they come from behind. So you've been giving out a few first half thoughts so far in the program, Ralph. Is this a situation where you would lay it with Alabama in the first half, or how would you approach this game?
We remember they were the run of the century. I mean, a couple of years ago, what did they go 14-1 on first halves? Again,
right.
new head coach Kalen DeBoer, and you might think, well, Bama has Georgia on deck, but again, there's a bye week on deck, so it's not quite the same situation. I think Bama uses this as a prep game to show Georgia. I think they're going to try running the ball. I am not impressed. Again, I agree with what Ross said and what you said, Brian, that the Florida State loss, maybe a fine loss in a couple more weeks. I mean, they were only outgained 382 to 341. Yes, they lost by 14 the way the game played out, but you can't overreact to those week one games. I think Alabama is going to try to run the ball. I don't think they need to pass it much. I think they need to work on that. I think that Wisconsin's rush D has always been decent. I don't know how they're going to fare here. Again, holding Miami to 1.5 and Middle Tennessee to 1.2 doesn't show you anything. But I actually like, if I had to play here, I would play this actually full game total, because if they have some trick plays, Wisconsin might try to use them early. You know, Fickle came out and said, we have this Alabama game circled all summer long. Who the heck circles a road game against a non-conference foe? I've never heard that of a Big Ten coach to even waste his time saying that. So maybe he does have some sort of scheme that he's going to try some fluke things early, and they didn't. Maybe, and again, maybe since they won 17-0 and 42-10, maybe we just think Wisconsin's offense is bad because he's hidden the playbook until he starts to play Alabama. That's a possibility. That's something we don't know. I think the points are too high for Alabama on the road in this situation. But again, I don't want to be on Wisconsin either. But call me a pass on this one.
Okay. Something else we need to note here. You know, we talk about the Wisconsin offensive front. Billy Edwards Jr. Doesn't sound like he's going to play in this game. So the task got a little bit tougher for Luke Fickle and the team.
Hey, Brian, just to correct, I mean, again, it was an oversight by Ralph, but Alabama's at home in this game, Ralph, not on the road.
My apologies. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's called Ross was making fun of my age before the show started, guys, in the green room.
Yeah, I thought you were going to tell me that UL Monroe had their game scheduled or circled against.
Yeah, good catch there, Ross. All right, the SEC seems to be the theme here. We've talked about a lot. Alabama, obviously, whether or not they can still be a force in this conference remains to be seen. But we're going to learn something here in the SEC Saturday night when this is the final game on our scheduled rundown, guys. Of course, we always are going to talk about the big games each and every week here on the Blitz. If there's a game that we have not mentioned that you want our opinion on, you only have a few minutes left to get those questions in, guys. So do that right now if you're watching live in the chat. But we're going to go to LSU in Florida. Ross, is there some – it's interesting. There's different ways to look at this, right? Florida, bad loss to South Florida last week. Look, you should never spit on an opponent, obviously. The fact that you would do it a couple days after it made national headlines in an NFL game was really stupid, I thought. And then it cost your game. It cost you the game, Florida. And Ross said, I'm going to do it again here. The seat, it's getting a little hot in Gainesville for down there, because if Florida loses here, and then as Ralph mentioned earlier, they've got Miami of Florida. Billy Napier might have to get that Indeed.com resume open again.
Okay, is there any way Napier survives to October the 1st? At LSU, at Miami of Florida, home against Texas, at Texas A&M. No chance.
That is not an easy schedule.
No chance he is around after October 1st.
Well, if he pulls an upset here, Ross, I get, he could have some job security for the time being. What do you think? Because to me, when I look at a team like Florida, who no one was expecting to lose last week to US, they were a double-digit favorite, obviously. Look, we respect USF on the program. We talked about that earlier. But people thought Florida was going to win that game. To me, my opinion is always there's some value now on the underdog. That's what the market seems. The market thinks this number opened a little bit too high. And as impressive as LSU looked against Clemson in the opener, boy, did they just sleepwalk their way to a win over Louisiana Tech last week.
Hey, Ross, let me jump in here, and I'm going to give people an angle, and then I'm going to have them think of the angle. After you get done, I'll share the angle with them. So, Brian, this is sort of something, without you telling me this, what's the ATS record for teams after they lost as a home favorite of 14 or more? I'll get you those ATS numbers after Ross finishes his breakdown.
Okay.
Yeah, and I could almost assure you that Ralph is going to come up with an angle that supports the underdog, because I do the same type of technical handicapping, and I don't mean any disrespect by any means with Ralph, but we think alike in that regard. So I think Ralph's going to mention that there's an angle that supports the underdog in this situation coming off a favorite loss of minus 14.5 or greater. Here's the thing with me. LSU was listless last week. Brian, you mentioned that. I just think that I got to give them a pass. They come off their big win against
100%.
Clemson on the road. And, you got Louisiana Tech in between the game against Clemson and the showdown with Florida, who at the time was a nationally ranked team when they faced them, when they played last week. To me, again, I'm going to stick with my guns here. I think that LSU is the best team in the country. I said that before the season started. I gave them out on the college football betting preview show with Teddy. I gave them out at plus 1,400 to win the national title. Now they're around plus 800 or so. Is a single-digit favorite. Now, if they were in the double digits of a touchdown or more, that's one thing. But as a single-digit favorite in this situation, and Billy Napier, he's on the hot seat. It doesn't look like the players really have his back the way they played last week against South Florida. I'm going to lay the points here with LSU. I know the early money came in on Florida, but I just think LSU is that much better. And I think the seat's going to get scalding hot after this week, Ralph.
All right, Ralph. So give us the trend here. I know you teased the trend. You heard what Ross had to say. He's sticking with the Bayou Bengals. LSU goes keeping score at home. Give us the trend.
Well, Ross, this isn't a wow number. But again, I want to share it just so people know. I had the exact same thought as you, Ross. I was expecting it to be a fairly, at least a profitable number. In the last 107 games where a team lost as a favorite of 14 or more, they are 51-56, 48% against the spread the next game. So again, it's to me, it's as important to know a trend that you had a thought in your mind and now that thought should be thrown out because it's not relative either way. With Lagway, I don't know if there's legitimate reports that he's banged up or just the rumor mills, but that's an issue here. This is another game where I love playing these conference games weeks 2 or 3 like this when you're matching up. Now LSU did play some competition, and yes, they were on the road at Death Valley, but they only had they only had 354 yards and they only rushed for 3.5 yards per carry. The Florida defense against USF, they did allow 391 yards, and they have been sacked against each of their first 2 opponents, which getting a sack against Long Island and only rushing for 5.3 is pretty scary. So it's going to be under for me again in this one. And something I want to mention, and I am remiss for not having this data for you, big ATS difference in LSU Death Valley playing a night game and a day game, with this being 7:30 p.m. So next time LSU has a night game, I'll make sure I have those numbers for you here on the Blitz. But again, it's Death Valley at night games and Penn State whiteouts are my 2 highest rated home field edges in all of college football.
Yeah, something tells me this will not be the last night game for LSU home game this season. I'm with you. I think they're a strong contender right now with the question marks we're seeing at quarterback with Georgia and Texas and Alabama. I think LSU is very live to win the SEC. We have one question coming in on another Friday night game from Godfather J6. Has chimed in again. He wants our thoughts on Kansas State, Arizona. We will get to that in just a moment. I'm going to just take my opportunity, since this is a Friday game, to promote what I've got going on. Again, one more time, WT.buzz/BP. We've got that weekend warrior pass. So if you want to get down, you get Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And remember, we're throwing in Monday. Ross mentioned it's a double header this week on Monday. Remember, you got Bucks, Texans, Raiders, hosting the Chargers. I will have a 5% NFL play on Sunday. We will have at least 3 college plays on Saturday. I know we're locked and loaded with 3 NFL plays on Sunday, and I might be playing both Monday Night Football games, guys, in the NFL. So look, $49, you can't beat that. I'll let these guys, after they're done giving their breakdowns on Kansas State, Arizona, remind you what they've got cooking this weekend as well. Ross, I'll throw it to you now. The floor is yours. Kansas State, Arizona, and remind the people what you have going on this weekend at WagerTalk.com.
Yeah, I mean, I can't pull the trigger on Kansas State. I thought that they would wake up last week against Army at home. Nothing embarrassing about losing by 3 on the road against a nationally ranked opponent in Iowa State. But then the following week, you come back. Yes, you're weary from travel, but you're playing an FCS opponent in North Dakota, and you need a last-minute touchdown to win at home 38-35. Then you play Army as a 17-point favorite. An Army team that lost to Ralph's alma mater, Tarleton State, in their season opener. Maybe it wasn't Ralph's alma mater. He'll let us know, I'm sure. But, and they laid an egg, and they lose the game outright. Not only not cover, but they lose the game outright. Arizona's got a little bit of momentum after a terrible year last year. They win their first 2 games, yes, albeit against less than imposing opposition. But I think that Arizona State, with the momentum and playing at home against a Kansas State team that right now, I'm not sure what you're going to get from, I can't pull the trigger on Kansas State. Probably a game I'm going to pass on. But if you, again, the proverbial gun to my head pick would be on Arizona in this one.
Ralph, those who have followed me and have been on board with me for any length of time before know that I am the ultimate buy low guy. I love to buy low on teams. And this would appear to be a buy low spot on Kansas State. But I'm with Ross. I don't think I can trust this team. My power ratings say no. I mean, they're back up to a road favorite here. I don't want to play them. I know they hammered Arizona last year in Manhattan, the Little Apple. But this game is out in Tucson, late Friday start. Your thoughts on this one?
My biggest power rating difference. And that's just because I haven't lowered Kansas State enough. I mean, Kansas State is by far my biggest dropper in the power ratings this year. So I cannot back them. I understand your buy high, buy low situations, but it's one thing to buy low because the team lost but played okay. It's another to get outgained by 86 yards against Army and only rush for 74 yards against an Army team that has a very small D-line against an opponent. I just don't like the Arizona State side either. So no opinion for me. I can't get to either side on this. And just a reminder again, Weekend Warrior, $49, a 5% NFL play loaded for Sunday now, all of Saturday, all of Sunday, and Monday football included. A great offer.
Yeah, Arizona's 2-0 against the number so far this year. Guys, here's a stat. This, I'd like you guys, I always pour over these box scores each and every week. This was the most astounding stat from last week in college football, okay? Kansas State, second half, time of possession against Army, 3 minutes. They had the ball for 3 minutes and a half. Tough to win when you only have the ball for 3 minutes, Ross.
Yeah, I just wonder if Avery Johnson's father and his brother got in a fight after that game. Man,
Yeah.
After playing that way, holy cow, especially when the brother didn't get on the field for only 3 minutes. Nothing unusual, Brian, when you play Army to lose time of possession. But you look at Army, and it's not like they racked up a ton of offense. They were less than 300 yards on the game themselves. So, yeah, I mean, what's going on, Ralph, with Kansas?
It's one thing to say Kansas had 3 minutes of possession. It's another to be a Kansas State team and allow Army to run 82 plays against you.
Yeah. I mean, well, to Ross's point, Army's a team, they're going to run that play clock down. I mean, their goal is to eat that time of possession, but even by an Army opponent standard, guys, 3 minutes of time of possession is quite ridiculous. We've been talking about this Weekend Warrior Pass several times. I should have mentioned when I talked about the 5% play that I've got this weekend. 6-2 last week for me in football, 3-1 college, 3-1 NFL. We hit 66% last year in September, guys, in NFL and college combined. So no surprise that I'm off to a 75% start this year. Mr. Benjamin, I believe you had something to say.
No, I was just giving you a thumbs up.
Again,
I didn't mention again to review 4 picks in college football on Saturday, including the 5% best bet. Tough week for me in the NFL, folks. I'm going to bounce back. I mean, look, I had the over on the Thursday night game, the Dallas and Philadelphia game, 41 at the half and ends up 44. I had Denver minus 8.5. They win by 8 and they pass up a field goal opportunity with less than a minute to go on 4th down. Field goal opportunity would have been from 50-something yards, Ralph, but, you're in field goal range when you enter the stadium in Denver. So A couple tough losses there. And then the Monday night game, I lost with Chicago. So I tell it the way it is. I brag about my college football record, but, the NFL didn't go as well. And we're transparent here, folks. We're not making up stories.
Hey, Ross, if James Franklin was at Denver coaching, they would have tried that field goal.
Oh, there's no doubt.
They would have tried a fake field goal.
Yeah. All right. Just real quick here. Did you guys want to reiterate your thoughts on Notre Dame, Texas A&M? Because we had a follow-up on that. Somebody tuned into the show. Did we want to just give
under first half for me, but I think there was some good information. Just rewind back and go view it again. I mean, it's only a couple of minutes, so yeah.
Yeah, Notre Dame coming off a loss with Marcus Freeman. Notre Dame coming off a bye week. Again, Notre Dame beating Texas A&M on the road last year. I know there's a revenge factor, but there's something to be said about that Notre Dame defense, which is very experienced and held Texas A&M in check last year. I don't see why the same thing doesn't occur here.
All right. Colin Gregory, thank you for your kind words. I would concur. It was a great show indeed. And if you thought it was a great show, you could be like Colin and just tell us it was a great show. Or you could smash that like button there right below. We always appreciate your support here on the Blitz. We are live, of course, every Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern on the WagerTalk YouTube channel, immediately following Andy Lang and WagerTalk Today, a show that I know we all appear on regularly as well. All right, that is going to do it. Remember to get your Weekend Warrior pass. We're all locked and loaded for a big weekend of football. Ross, Ralph, and myself. Remember, it's going to be the three of us each and every week here on the Blitz. We like each other so much, we've decided to be your permanent team. So on that note, guys, until next time, let's cash some tickets.